We hadn't spoken in over a year. That's how long it had been since Nathan packed his things into 2 duffel bags and walked out of the apartment we used to share. 1 year, 3 months, and 19 days. Not that I was counting. I'd told everyone I was over it, that I was doing better, that I was focusing on myself. And I almost believed it, until that night. It was a regular Tuesday. I had just microwaved leftover Thai food, thrown on an episode of Archer, and flopped onto my couch with a can of beer. My phone buzzed. I didn't even check it at first. I assumed it was one of the group chats, or maybe a reminder from my calendar about a meeting I was already planning to skip. But when I finally glanced down at the screen, my heart dropped into my stomach. "Nathan, I miss you." That was it. No punctuation, no explanation, just that. I stared at the screen, frozen. My first thought was that it had to be a mistake. Maybe he meant to text someone else. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe he was playing games. But deep down, I knew it wasn't any of that. Because as much as I hated to admit it, I missed him too. Even after all this time, all the anger, all the nights I spent trying to forget the way he used to look at me when he thought I wasn't watching, I didn't respond. I just locked my phone, tossed it on the table, and tried to get back to my show. I got maybe 5 minutes in before I paused it. Got up, poured a second beer, then a third. I was mid-sip when the knock came. 3 soft taps, a beat, then 2 more. It was past midnight. No one knocked at that hour unless it was an emergency or a mistake. My heart was already racing when I peeked through the peephole, and there he was, Nathan. Same messy hair, same old hoodie, the one I used to steal when it got cold at night. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept well in days. His eyes flicked up to the door, and even through the small circle of glass, I could see the hesitation in them. I opened the door without saying a word. He stepped back slightly, as if surprised I actually opened it. "Hey," he said, voice low, almost unsure. I didn't reply. I couldn't. My throat had gone completely dry. "I didn't think you'd actually," he trailed off, rubbing the back of his neck like he used to when he was nervous. "I was walking home from this thing, and I don't know. I kept thinking about you." He looked at me like he wasn't sure if he should keep going. Like he didn't know if he was welcome. "I didn't come to fight," he said quickly. I didn't know who else to go to. I just wanted to see you." The silence stretched between us, heavy and awkward and electric all at once. I should have told him to leave. I should have reminded him of everything he put me through. But instead, I stepped aside. "You want to come in?" I heard myself say. Nathan blinked, like he wasn't expecting that answer. Then slowly he stepped past me into the apartment. And just like that, he was back inside my life. Nathan stepped in like he was walking into a memory, slow, uncertain, eyes scanning the place like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to look. Nothing had really changed since he left. Same couch, same plants on the windowsill, same framed photo of a cityscape we took on a trip to Chicago. He used to say it was his favorite shot of mine. He paused by it. I saw his eyes linger, just for a second before he turned toward me. "Smells the same in here," he said with a small smile, trying to sound casual. "Your detergent. Still lavender?" I nodded, suddenly aware that I was still standing in the doorway in my worn-out pajama pants and a hoodie with a coffee stain on the chest. I felt exposed in a way I hadn't expected to. "Sit down," I said, motioning toward the couch. "You want a drink or something?" He hesitated. "Yeah. Just water, if that's okay." I grabbed a glass from the kitchen and filled it from the filter, my hands oddly steady considering how fast my heart was beating. When I walked back in, he was sitting on the far end of the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the muted TV screen. I handed him the glass. He took it with a soft, "Thanks," and didn't drink it. A heavy silence settled between us. Not the comfortable kind we used to have when we were both reading or working on our laptops. This one buzzed with unspoken things. Finally, I spoke. "Why now?" He looked up. "What?" You texted me out of nowhere. You show up at midnight. What do you want, Nathan? He winced. I don't know. I thought I did. But now I'm here and it's like, God, this was a bad idea. He stood up like he was about to leave. I didn't stop him, but he didn't move toward the door either. He just ran a hand through his hair and looked down at the rug. I've been thinking about you a lot lately, he said quietly. More than I should. And tonight, I don't know, I just couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that night we made grilled cheese at 2 a.m. and danced around this place to that awful pop playlist. I swallowed hard. He looked up, eyes meeting mine. And I realized, that's the last time I felt okay. The words hit me harder than I expected, because I remembered that night. The music. The way he looked at me like I was the only person in the world. The way we fell asleep on the floor, wrapped in each other, the pan still in the sink. I sat down, finally, sinking into the other end of the couch. What do you want from me, Nathan? I asked again, softer this time. He took a breath. I don't know if I want anything. I just wanted to see you. To know if it still felt like something. He looked scared. Not in a dramatic way. Just quietly terrified, like he was laying something bare and didn't know if I was about to destroy it. And the worst part? I didn't know either. We sat there for a long time. Him on one end of the couch, me on the other. The space between us somehow heavier than it had ever been. I don't hate you, I said eventually, breaking the silence. In case you were wondering. Nathan gave a quiet laugh. I was wondering. I did. For a while. I deserve that. He nodded. Probably more. I didn't disagree. The breakup wasn't clean. He left in the middle of a fight. One of those stupid, spiraling ones where it starts about laundry and ends with someone saying something they can't take back. He said he couldn't breathe in our relationship anymore. I told him to go if he needed space. So he did. And then never came back. You were always better at holding it together, he said, his voice low. I didn't know how to deal with the hard parts, so I bailed. I looked at him. He wasn't looking at me, just staring at his hands like they might have the answers. Why didn't you call? I asked. Why wait this long? I was scared you'd moved on, he said, finally meeting my eyes. Or worse, that you hadn't, and you were still hurting. Because of me. Well, congrats, I said with a dry smile. You managed both. He flinched a little, but he didn't try to argue. We went quiet again, the kind of quiet that doesn't fill the room, just exposes every little sound. The hum of the fridge, the faint creak of the building settling, the slow inhale and exhale of two people trying to pretend this is normal. Do you remember our last night here? He asked suddenly. I nodded. Of course I do. He leaned back against the couch, his eyes fixed on the ceiling now. You had that playlist going, the one with all the sad acoustic songs. It was background music, I muttered, defensive. You were trying to tell me something without saying it. I didn't get it then. I get it now. I looked at him. And what is it you think I was trying to say? That you were still in it, he said quietly. And I was already slipping away. My throat tightened. Because he wasn't wrong. I was scared too, I admitted. Not of you leaving, of what we'd become. It felt like we were constantly walking on eggshells by the end. Nathan turned to face me, eyes soft. I thought space would help. I didn't expect space to become silence. That hit. Because the silence was the worst part, not the breakup, not the empty bed, or the missing toothbrush. It was the silence afterward, the unanswered questions, the ghosts in the apartment. He set the water glass down on the table and leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees again. I didn't come here to mess with your head, he said. I swear. I'm not expecting anything. I needed to see you. And now that you have? He looked at me like he was really seeing me for the first time in months. I don't know. Now I just want to stay. I should have said no. That would have been the clean response. The responsible thing. Tell him thanks for the honesty, maybe even offer a polite goodbye, and close the door on a chapter I thought I had already finished. But instead, I said nothing. Nathan sat there, hands loosely clasped, waiting, like he was prepared for rejection, but hoping for anything else. His leg bounced slightly, a nervous habit he always had when he was unsure of himself. It made something in my chest twist. You can't just come back like this, I finally said, voice low. Drop in I miss you, and expect everything to reset. I know, he replied instantly. I swear I know that. And yet here you are. Yeah, he said, offering the smallest, saddest smile. Here I am. He leaned back again, head resting against the top of the couch. He looked exhausted, not just physically, but like someone who'd been carrying something heavy for too long. Do you ever think about it? He asked, eyes still on the ceiling. About what? Us. How good it was, before it got messy. I hated how fast the memories came. The lazy mornings where we made pancakes and argued over which syrup was superior. The way he'd kiss my neck while I was brushing my teeth just to annoy me. The nights we'd lie on this exact couch, limbs tangled, watching terrible TV, saying nothing at all, and still feeling completely seen. Yeah, I admitted. I think about it. He turned his head slightly, eyes meeting mine. I still remember the way you used to hum in the shower, that stupid song from Shrek. I rolled my eyes. Don't start. I liked it, he said. It made the apartment feel like a home. A beat. You made it feel like a home. That one landed a little too hard. I cleared my throat and stood up, needing to move, needing to break the tension. I walked to the kitchen without a word, opened the fridge, stared into it like it held the answers to everything. It didn't. Behind me, I heard him shift. Then, footsteps. Then silence again as he hovered just outside the kitchen doorway. I don't want to make your life complicated, he said softly. Too late for that, I replied without turning around. But I didn't come here to reopen wounds either, he added quickly. I needed you to know I'm sorry. I turned to face him. What are you sorry for exactly? For walking out, for not calling, for leaving you to deal with everything alone, for making you feel like you weren't enough. I stared at him for a moment. You never said that, I said. He nodded slowly. Didn't have to, you felt it. He took a step forward, then stopped, hands in his pockets. I missed the way you used to look at me when I was talking about something dumb, like it still mattered, like I mattered. You did, I said, before I could stop myself. You still do. The words hung in the air between us. For the first time since he walked in, Nathan didn't try to speak. He just looked at me with this softness I hadn't seen in a long, long time. And somehow, that was worse than anything he could have said. Nathan didn't move. He didn't press closer. He just stood there, watching me like he was afraid I might disappear if he blinked too long. And for some reason, that look, so quiet, so unsure, hit me harder than any fight we'd ever had. I'm not saying we should jump back into anything, he said, finally breaking the silence. I wanted you to hear it from me, not some mutual friend, not months from now when I'm with someone else and it's too late. My chest tightened. You seeing someone? He shook his head quickly. No, I'm not. I haven't. Some part of me relaxed, and I hated that it did. We stood there for what felt like forever, neither of us quite knowing what to do with the moment. It was the same kitchen where we used to cook together, where he used to sneak up behind me and wrap his arms around my waist while something sizzled on the stove. Now it was the setting for a confession neither of us had expected to have. I leaned back against the counter, folding my arms across my chest. Why now, though? I asked. What changed? He took a breath, and his answer came slower this time. I saw someone today, he said. At a coffee shop. They looked like you, from the back. Same hoodie, same haircut. I almost said your name out loud. He laughed, dry and a little self-deprecating. And then I realized how badly I wanted it to be you, how stupidly hopeful I was. I stayed quiet, listening. And I guess that's when it hit me. This thing between us never really left. I tried to move past it, tried to date again. I even downloaded a couple of those apps. But every time, I'd compare them to you. The way you laughed. The way you'd get this crease between your eyebrows when you were concentrating. The way you knew when I was spiraling before I even said a word. He looked at me, his eyes glassy but steady. No one ever saw me like you did. My throat was thick now, the weight of everything pressing into my chest. I used to hate how much I loved you, I said, almost in a whisper. Because it made me feel small. Like if you ever left, I'd fall apart. I know, he said. And you did. Because of me. I nodded, staring down at the floor. But I got back up, I added. Eventually. He stepped a little closer, cautious, like he was waiting for me to tell him to stop. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said. And I'm not asking for a second chance. I missed you so much, it physically hurt. And I didn't know what else to do with that. The clock ticked softly in the background. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance. But in the kitchen, everything had gone still. Finally, I said, I don't know what you want from me, Nathan. I don't either, he said. Maybe I just wanted to remember what it felt like to be in the same room with you. To not feel like a ghost. I looked at him for a long time. His face was more tired than I remembered. A little older. A little sadder. But still him. Still the boy I fell in love with. Still the man who left. And maybe, still the person I never quite let go of. I don't know how long we stood there. Me against the counter, Nathan halfway between the kitchen and the living room, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to move forward or supposed to walk back out the door. Eventually, I broke the silence. You want tea or something? It was a dumb question. It wasn't about tea. It was about finding something to say that wasn't stay or go. He gave a small nod. Yeah, sure. So I made tea. Quietly, methodically. He watched me like he was watching something sacred, like just being back in this space was enough to crack him open. I didn't ask more questions. I didn't want answers right now. I just needed a moment that felt normal. We sat at the kitchen table. 2 mugs between us, steam rising. The tension didn't vanish, but it softened, bent around the edges. Nathan picked at the edge of his mug with his thumb. You ever wonder what would have happened if I'd just stayed? He asked. All the time. I admitted. He looked up, surprised. You do? Yeah, I said, swirling my spoon. Sometimes I think maybe we'd have figured it out. Other times I think we would have burned everything to the ground trying. Nathan smiled faintly. We weren't good at talking, were we? We were good at everything but talking. He nodded. I used to think love was supposed to be easy. You just meet the right person, and it all clicks. But it doesn't. Not always. It clicks, I said quietly. But then it creaks. It bends. And if you don't adjust, it breaks. He looked up at me, and there was something there. Some old warmth, laced with regret. I miss how we used to talk at night, he said. Like, really talk after everything. When the lights were off, and we just lie there. Me too. He took a breath. I miss a lot of things, he said. But mostly, I miss how safe it felt being next to you. And that hit something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. Because I miss that too. I miss the quiet assurance of his body next to mine. The way his hand would find mine under the covers. The way his chest rose and fell in rhythm with mine. But I also remembered the nights we'd sleep back to back, tension thick in the air. The words we didn't say. The ones we did, that we wished we hadn't. "I'm not the same person I was a year ago," I said. "I know," he replied. "I'm not either." We both sipped our tea, and for a minute it was almost peaceful. "I don't want to screw this up again," he added, eyes on his mug. "Then don't," I said simply. "Don't try to make this what it used to be. If anything happens, it has to be new." He looked up, a flicker of hope breaking through the worry in his expression. "You'd be open to that?" he asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I'm not making promises. But I didn't slam the door in your face tonight. That has to count for something." He gave a small, breathy laugh. "Yeah, it counts for everything." We sat in silence again, but this one felt easier. Familiar, the way you sit with someone when the hardest things have already been said, and now there's nothing left to do but be there. When he finally stood, I expected him to say he should go, that this was enough for one night. Instead, he just looked at me. "Would it be weird if I crashed on the couch?" he asked. "I'll leave in the morning. I don't want to be alone tonight." I hesitated, not because I didn't want him there, but because I knew what it meant to say yes. But I did. "Yeah," I said, "that's fine." He gave me a look. Grateful, relieved, cautious, and took the blanket I handed him from the linen closet. As he settled on the couch, I hovered in the doorway for a second, unsure of what I felt. "Good night," I said. He looked up. "Good night." And for the first time in over a year, Nathan was asleep under my roof again. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because Nathan was on the couch or because I was nervous something would happen. Nothing did. It wasn't like that. It was more that my brain wouldn't shut off. The emotional weight of everything he said kept circling, digging in, refusing to let me rest. I got up early, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table scrolling aimlessly through emails I wasn't actually reading. At some point, I heard the soft creak of the couch and the familiar shuffle of his feet against the floor. The same shuffle I used to hear every morning before either of us spoke. Nathan stood in the doorway, hair a mess, blanket still draped over one shoulder. "Hey," he said, voice still gravelly from sleep. "Hey," I replied, sliding the coffee pot toward him. "Mugs are where they've always been." He nodded, walked to the cabinet like he'd never left, and poured himself a cup. I watched him move through the space, calm, quiet, unassuming, and for a second, it felt like nothing had ever changed. But then he sat across from me, eyes a little red, and that weight returned. The weight of everything in between. "Didn't mean to take your whole night," he said, cradling his mug. "You didn't." I didn't know where else to go." I gave a short nod. "I get that." He hesitated, then asked, "Do you want me to go?" I took a long sip before answering. "I think we should talk more. But not now. Not like this. Not half asleep and raw." Nathan nodded, like he'd expected that answer. Like he was relieved by it. "I'd like that," he said. There was a pause, and then he asked something I didn't expect. "Do you think we broke each other?" I looked up, caught off guard. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe. But if we did, we're still here, still talking. That's something." He gave a small, tired smile. "Yeah, it is." We didn't talk much more that morning. He finished his coffee, folded the blanket, gathered his things without being asked, and when he stood by the door, backpack slung over one shoulder, he turned to me with this tentative look. "I know this doesn't fix anything," he said, "but last night, it wasn't about nostalgia. I wasn't looking to relive anything." "What was it about then?" "You," he said. "The real you, not the memory, not the guilt. I needed to see you. And I'm glad I did." I didn't say anything right away, but as he opened the door and stepped into the hallway, I called after him. "Nathan," he turned. "Don't wait a year next time." That same soft smile touched his face, and this time, it felt real. "I won't." Then he left. And I stood there, door still slightly open, wondering what the hell I was supposed to feel. I didn't have answers. But I had something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The days that followed were quiet, but not in the same way they used to be. Before Nathan showed up, my apartment always felt a little too still, like silence was a punishment I couldn't quite escape. But after he left that morning, it was different. The quiet wasn't so sharp. It didn't cut. It just waited. He didn't text that day, or the next. I half expected him to disappear again, and part of me was okay with that. At least this time we'd ended on something resembling closure. But then, 3 days later, I got a message. "Nathan, you said not to wait a year. How about coffee next week? No pressure." I stared at it for a while, thumb hovering above the keyboard. Then I typed a response and deleted it. Twice. Eventually, I just sent, "Me. Okay. Coffee next week." We met on a Wednesday. Same coffee shop we used to go to after errands. The one with the wobbly tables and the indie music that never seemed to change. He was already there when I arrived. Same spot in the back, 2 coffees waiting. "Still drink it black?" he asked as I slid into the seat. "Yeah, still bitter," I joked. He smiled, and it didn't feel loaded or nostalgic. Just simple. Comfortable. The conversation was easy. We talked about work, about our mutual friends, about his sister's wedding and my new coworker who keeps bringing his lizard to Zoom calls. We didn't dive into the past. Not right away. That would come later. Instead, we laughed, and that felt like the biggest step. Over the next few weeks, we started seeing each other more. Not dates, not exactly, just little moments. A walk around the park, a late movie, a shared dinner where we actually cleaned up afterward instead of letting dishes sit until morning. It wasn't like before, and that was a good thing. One night, we sat on my balcony, wrapped in blankets, watching the city hum below. "I've been thinking," Nathan said, his voice quieter than the breeze. "Maybe we didn't break each other," I glanced at him. "Maybe we were just young and tired and scared." I nodded. "Maybe we still are." He smiled. "Yeah, but now we talk about it." I reached out, fingers brushing his. "We don't have to figure it all out right now," I said. "No," he agreed. "But I'd like to keep trying, if you're open to that." I was quiet for a moment, just listening to the city, to his breathing next to mine. "I think I am," I said. "But only if it's different. Only if we build something new." "Yeah," he whispered, "something better." And we sat there, not as exes chasing a past, but as something else. Something slower. Something real.